Carnage and Venom crafting, I don't know if you noticed, but I'd say those collectibles are incredible. Also, Kevin, the bird from the movie Up, is released, and only a total of 88 editions out there. Is it going to enter the same territory of collectible like Donnie did? Also, is Sailor Moon possibly coming to VeVe? Well, today we have the legends of the VeVe space joining me with top-level analysis and insights on VeVe and Ecomi. So if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And let's welcome Doctor of Stuff and the real Randy Chavez to the program. What's up, gentlemen?
How's it going, Randy? How's it going, Randy?
Going well.
Good.
How about y'all?
Good. Super good, man. I'm stoked. We got a lot to talk about today, and I'm like pretty passionate about a couple of the topics for sure, which you'll probably see come out as I talk about.
Yeah, it's funny how much information comes out on just this one project and things related to it. I mean, generally in this, we talk about VeVe, Ecomi. We also talk about the broader crypto space, but it seems like we never run out of stuff to talk about every week. So let's jump right into it. Well, Doc, there was a big ruling from the Supreme Court that came down. They're calling it the Chevron difference. Like, what the hell is the Chevron difference, and why does that make any difference to the crypto industry?
Oh, so if you guys haven't heard of this Supreme Court ruling that just came down, the Chevron deference, like basically, there was a ruling that happened decades ago, and what it basically said was that, hey, the courts will defer to regulators. So what happens? Sorry, let me back up a little bit. Congress makes a law about something, okay? Whether it's securities or banking or healthcare or something like that, they'll pass a law. But then it's up to the federal agencies to create regulations to implement those laws, right, and enforce those laws. But sometimes those regulations are kind of like interpretations of what Congress put forward. And unfortunately, Congress isn't perfect. And so they'll make a law, but there's a lot of nuance in whatever industry that you're in, right? And so what happens sometimes is there are these gray areas where it's just like the law doesn't really speak to that. The regulation doesn't really speak to that. What do we do? And so the Chevron ruling basically was saying like, hey, the courts are going to must rule in favor of the regulator as long as their interpretation is like a good in good faith or well supported. I'm trying to remember the terminology there, right? And so that's how it's been for a long time. And what we've seen now, right, is, and let's just speak about crypto. I mean, this is happening all over the place, right? With environmental protection agencies like EPA, like all these federal agencies, and some of them have kind of gone rogue, right? Specifically the SEC, where they're just like, everything's a security. In our interpretation, everything's a security. And when people are like, hey, is ETH a security? And then he's like, he never answers the question. There was some real big concern in these industries where they're like, we're trying to build businesses, but you're not giving us the transparency, and we have to rely on your interpretation. And the Chevron doctrine says that we also the courts have to rely on that. Well, basically, this Supreme Court decision overturned that. Now, I want to get you guys' thoughts on this, but let me tell you, this is crazy. Like, I don't think that I can articulate well enough how crazy this is going to be, because what happens now is everything can go to the courts. So you're gonna start seeing, right, like judge positions open, like 20,000 judge positions open, because basically, like in any industry, those companies can then sue or push back and be like, we're taking you to court. We don't agree with this interpretation. And guess what? The courts now don't say, hey, we're relying on the good faith efforts of the agency, right, the regulator. Now the courts are deciding, but there's a big problem with that. Those judges aren't experts in these areas. So now we have to rely on the arguments of the prosecutor and the defendant, right? And their ability to inform the judge, and for the judge to go and research to make pretty substantial decisions that can impact us like on a daily basis. And I'm talking to healthcare, crypto, banking, environment. Like, I mean, it is so far reaching, this decision. It is going to be crazy. But from the crypto side of things, I love it. Screw you, Gary Gensler. Like, and this is the problem. This is the problem, is you got some rogue regulators that have done that. And one of the verbiage or phrases that they used, right? Let's do a little bit of a history again. The SEC went after a company in Utah. And as they were doing that, they presented to the judge and they said, "Hey, judge, we're afraid that this company, that they're moving funds around and they're gonna peace out and they're gonna leave the country. You need to lock down all of their accounts," right? And so the judge ordered that and they locked them down. But then the company goes back and they're like, "This is like our operating account." And they showed them all of the information. And the judge is like, "The SEC literally lied to me. Like they withheld information and made it look like these guys were on the run or about to run when they absolutely weren't," right? And so the judge actually ruled against the SEC, fined the SEC, and said, like, not only are you paying like the attorney fees, but we're going to fine you, which that rarely happens. That's a pretty substantial thing, right? And the judge was like, "You're arbitrary and capricious in this," right? Like that was the phrase. And in this latest Supreme Court ruling, they talk about some of the regulators being arbitrary and capricious. And so you can see that a lot of the weight on this decision has to be looked at from like the SEC standpoint and how rogue they've been. So this is crazy stuff, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, you've really seen a lot under the Biden administration in the US. Just instead of going through Congress and trying to get new laws passed, they've just given orders to the different regulators of make this finding and interpret the law this way and go after it. And you've seen that under the SEC, right? Like we've been following it closely under the US SEC because it's impacted crypto so much, and it's kept like 75% of the funds out there that would come into crypto are in the US. And it's really held back crypto. It hasn't stopped it. Like crypto is still going to happen even if the US doesn't participate in it. What will happen is a lot of money and a lot of people will just move overseas and still make it happen because it does allow the internet to do things it needs to be able to do for cheaper and more effectively and more transparent. The crypto is going to happen. But the US SEC is interesting because what you don't want with lawmakers is, I want you to picture this visual. A lawmaker or a regulator, not a lawmaker, sitting there with a stop and a go sign at the intersection, deciding who gets to stop and who has to go. Just not some like actual like firm rules, but hey, you know what? I don't like you. Stop. Oh, you didn't give to the right candidate. Stop. Oh, you did go to the right candidate. Go. And when they make things really unclear without giving you defined guidelines, they're doing that so they get to have the stop and go sign. So you have to come to them on your knees. And it happens to be if you're donating massively to the right parties like Sam Bankman-Fried, you get all green lights. Everyone else, all red lights. And isn't that what's been happening with the US SEC? And so they've had the Chevron deference since the 80s. That's 40 years. And then the courts are like, you are massively abusing that power. And essentially, we're going to take it away from you. We gave you this deference. You're abusing the hell out of it. So now, if there's a dispute, it's going to come before a judge. And we're going to throw you out because the EPA has come in with all these guidelines like, you can't do this and you can't do this. And like, you know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, we need regulators to come in. Regulators will make it more fair. Don't be so certain that is what's supposed to happen. What you might be misunderstanding is that's not what always happens. The more power you give the regulators, the more power they get to pick the winners and losers. And a lot of times over time, there's this regulatory capture that, like, say, you know, the financial industry by the SEC, you know, what happens is all these people at the SEC, they might be making $200,000 a year, and they're really trying to get in good with Goldman Sachs because they know they can get a job with Goldman Sachs making $2 million a year. So then they're just like, oh, they give green passes to the big boys. So they can hopefully get a job, and they become really cozy with the big boys while stopping the innovation from happening. So the intent of regulators is to always make it more fair. in practice, that's not what always happens, especially the more power you give them without checks and balances, the worse it gets. And I think the Supreme Court of the U.S. decided we just want more checks and balances, make sure it's not happening unfairly here. Because clearly there's some shady stuff going on. What happened in Utah, like it's funny, they quoted that language, arbitrary and capricious. After, was it the case in Utah that they were determined that, or was it a second one? Because they've had some big losses this last year at the SEC. And not just the one in Utah where they literally lied to the judge. Some other ones that they've been like smacked down on hard because they've really been pushing the boundaries of like, we think everything should be a security. Like if Gary Gensler could determine that baseball cards were a security, like he's probably going there next. If he could get all of crypto to be a security, it's Pokemon cards and baseball cards are securities too. You know, they want to oversee that as well. Seems to be the route he's going, right?
Well, he actually did say that Pokemon cards themselves, the physical ones, are not securities. But when they asked, because they asked him, they said, "Are Pokemon cards securities?" And he said, "No." And they're like, "Is a tokenized Pokemon card a security?" And he wouldn't answer. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me!"
But if he could declare it a security, he probably would. He just would probably get railroaded out of office.
As somebody that is kind of just learning about this, so take anything I say with a giant grain of salt. It seems to me that there are multiple things that, and I don't know if all of these are going to be good, because you have, let's say one way. I remember a few years back where some fairly liberal states that were very pro-choice, they had made it so that, oh, you can abort a baby like up until like 9 months, you know, whatever. So a lot of the southern states said like, hey, if you're going to do this, we're going to go and act like this. And they made like a heartbeat bill and they made other bills. And it's like, so some people were mad and be like, well, how do you expect these religious states to react when a lot of states up north and out west, that like how, when you have one thing happen, equal and opposite reaction is going to happen. So like you said, when you have 40 years of people taking advantage of these types of laws, like how is the Supreme Court supposed to react? I mean, this is not their only ruling in the last couple of weeks that's been controversial, but again, when certain things happen and the pendulum swings one way, you're gonna have to expect that to go the other way. The other thing I just Googled, the average judge, they have a decently high IQ, anywhere from 120 to 140, which is most likely enough to be able to, even if they don't understand crypto, they can at least grasp, okay, here's what's happening, and they could discern in between the lines. Like they'll I think it was, the quote was from 21 Indispensable Qualities of Leader that said, a good leader only believes half of what he hears, but a discerned leader they know which half to believe. So I feel like any judge with a 120 to a 140 IQ can probably, okay, this makes sense. This is bullshit. I see what you're trying to do here. And hopefully they can have a good enough mind to read between those lines. But I don't know what the policy is for judges and their finances. Like in the average military, they don't care if you have crap credit. They don't care if you're on food stamps. Like the average military gets treated like crap. However, in the higher agencies, they'll do regular background checks to make sure your credit doesn't drop below whatever you have certain finance. And it's because, hey, you have access to this sensitive information. They want to make sure that nobody's going to come in with a couple $1 million and get you to betray your country. I don't know what the standards are for judges. And if somebody says like, okay, this judge is in charge of this really important case, and nobody's looking into their finances, nobody's looking into, you know, what else they have going on. So I don't know what type of manipulation or what type of other things can happen behind the scenes. Now, obviously that's everywhere. But it sounds like there's going to be a lot of added new cases, and like they're not adding any more judges. It's like, but they're suddenly going to get like tens of thousands of new cases with all this. There's some cases that are probably going to have to wait a while. And, you know, obviously some could set a precedent for other cases, and then those can be settled very quickly. But I think it might get a little iffy before it gets better, but hopefully not. Hopefully, if we want to bring some optimism here, we can have some good cases ruled very quickly. That sets a precedent, and then we all live in happier times.
I think this is a great thing because like some of these things will be able to come under review. I think sometimes the regulars have come in, especially the last, 3 or 4 years, have been very heavy-handed. And to defend yourself as a company, it costs you tens of millions of dollars, especially when there's the Chevron deference. Well, now that the Chevron deference of, you know what, we're going to review this, and we're not necessarily going to lean towards the agency. We're going to come in. The judge is going to come in with more of an open mind of, are they being fair here? Are they following the law? Are they just making up additional hurdles that are hurting business? So cool thing for the US. And I think cool thing for crypto with the US SEC, they've come in really like a huge lack of clarity. They won't even answer if something is a security. The only way they green light you, apparently, if you give tens of millions of dollars to mostly Democrats on one side, but secretly a whole bunch of Republicans on the other side, you can, I guess, meet with Gary Gensler as much as you want, and he makes your life really easy. And that is how you make a system more corrupt, not more transparent and better. What we'd like to see is just kind of like, instead of like somebody with a stop sign, just like green lights and red lights. If you do it this way, it's green. If you do it this way, it's red. And companies in the crypto space in the US have not been able to get the clear guidance of what's a green light, what's maybe a yellow light, and what's a red light. And that's what they've been wanting.
So a point of clarification. You were right, Rain. The phrase arbitrary and capricious was actually used in the ruling of the grayscale Bitcoin ETF, right? And when the SEC was saying, no, we think this is a security, and they're like, well, wait a second, but you've already done the ETH futures and, or Bitcoin futures and things. So, but then Debtbox was the Utah-based company, and the judge there said that the SEC had committed a gross abuse of power. And think about that, a judge coming against a federal agency and saying you've implemented a gross abuse of power. I mean, that is such strong language. And the fact that they fined the SEC like that doesn't happen, guys. Like a $1.8 million fine to the SEC, which, by the way, taxpayers have to front, right? Like that's coming out of the taxes, that's awesome. Love that. So yeah. This is crazy, and as you can tell, like I'm pretty passionate about it. I'm stoked from the crypto side of things that basically the SEC doesn't have the teeth that it did, especially because it was being misused with Gensler at the helm. But then the problem is, and Randy, when you're saying judges have a general IQ of 120 to 140, still the problem is like if you're not like an expert, like you don't know this, like there's so many second and third order effects that they might not be considering. Right, that aren't presented even in the arguments and things. And so they can make this ruling just based on what's in front of them without being able to consider, actually, when I implement this, here's the downside that's going to impact this and impact this and impact this. But then we also have the right to like a speedy trial, right? Like just in general in the US, how are we going to meet that now if the courts are bogged up with literally lawsuits all over the place? Because we're talking every federal agency, right? Like, so all of these companies in all of these different industries are going to be able to take federal agencies to court on this and say like, and the term is reasonable from the Chevron doctrine, right? Is as long as the regulator interpretation was reasonable. So now they can sit there and say, well, hey, like we don't feel like this is reasonable. Take them to court, and it's just like, speeding ticket. Well, we'll see you in 5 years is when we're going to be able to address that, right? Because the courts get so bogged. So it's it's going to be
in New York. It's like that. I had I had a really weird thing, and I won't go into it. It's just like the tags on the front of my car were just like the inspection or whatever hadn't been done for like X amount of time, and it wasn't my fault through various things. So I was like, I'm going to plead not guilty, and I'm going to get a court case. And I mailed that in like months ago, and I haven't even gotten a letter back saying when my court date is. It's probably going to be next year. I'll be gone. I won't even be I won't be in New York. So New York, if you want to fight a traffic ticket, you are not going to have to pay anything for at least a year. Your court date won't even be for like another year. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a little bit about what's been going on in the general crypto space with the Chevron deference, and it is a big deal. I think the SEC has been grossly abusing their power. It was fun to see the Supreme Court citing the language used to smack down the SEC. And it's not just the SEC, it's been several agencies. And it's too bad I wish all these regulators were acting like very fairly and impartially and trying to just do the right thing, because it would have been nice for them to really have earned that Chevron deference where, you know, we could trust that they were just doing the right thing. And that way there would be less, I don't know, less things going to court and stuff. But when you abuse of power, sometimes that power gets taken away from you. All right. What else is on your mind about Ecomi and VeVe?
Lots of stuff. Do we go in order? It's who made this link? Whose show is it today?
Well, Doctor of Stuff, why don't you share with us some of the stuff you're thinking about Hulk 181?
Yeah, right. So obviously, in kind of like the weekly update that My Collectibles did, shout out to My Collectibles. I love those updates. And it's cool. It's like a cool recap of kind of what's happened so far. But at the end of it, there was this Wolverine claw cutting through the darkness, right? And then it opened up, and then you heard Hulk's like, roar, like the Hulk, sound that makes from the collectibles. And to me, like I feel like that's FA Wolverine, which is in Hulk 181. And on top of that, like to the side of My Collectibles was Hulk 181, right? So like it's coming, and they talk about Hulk size announcements and things. And so yeah, like I guess I would love to know you guys' thoughts, because what we've seen recently was some of these Golden Age comics, or just like high profile comics, right? Bronze Age, Silver Age, they're high profile. They've typically been listing at like $20, right? So my question is, what do you guys think the listing price is going to be? And then how many editions do you think they're going to do? And then thoughts on what you think is going to happen and whether you think that's good.
I would like to say that, so something similar to this, let's say like giant size X-Men rated 9.9 in the physical world just sold for like 170,000. Typically when you take a look at the 9.8s and then you say, okay, what would a 9.9 be for like a Grail, like 181, first appearance of that Wolverine? Add like a 0 to it, give or take. So you have, I think the 9.8 would be like 68,000. 9.9 would probably go for $500,000. So this type of, it would be okay if they did $20 at 10,000 comics. VeVe and Marvel gross 200K. That'd be nice, and then all of us get. I think that would be really fun. I feel like multiple of us can get multiple, and that's what I would hope. What do they actually do? I don't know, but I think that would be a nice thing in there.
Oh, perfect timing as he disappeared.
And Randy's out.
And he's like, that's all I had to say. I'm gone. The Kaiser Sose just disappeared right into the thin air.
Hard to tell in this bear market, especially without knowing like the mint size and what will happen with it. I mean, we're technically out of the bear market and we're in the early bull run, but in the early bull run, like unless something garners a whole bunch of attention, like generally its price doesn't really shoot up initially. Like if you think about Kevin, there's only 88 mints of it. And there is some, like, there's been some hype. So the price on that's gone kind of high, but still like prices are still pretty reasonable so that people passively can pick up really good collectibles. For example, we'll talk about Venom and Carnage in a minute, but I think their prices are pretty good. I'm thinking that their price is going to fall as kind of the spotlight shines on other things, and will come back and be even more attractive.
So I think my guess is that it's $20 and that they do 10,000 mints, which I would prefer they don't do that. If they're going to have a higher price point, then I think that they should do less. If they're going to do more mints, then I think that they should do a lower price point and allow more people to get in. Because I would love more. I would love more, but it's kind of got to make sense for people too, right? Like, and just $20 at 10,000 mints, it's just like, and we saw that. What was the recent one that we saw? Oh, I mean, it was Wolverine #1, where it was $20 and it was like a high mint, and like it hasn't minted out, right? Like, and not that everything has to mint out. I know that some people get hung up on that, like, oh, it didn't mint out, but I'm just like in this market, I think that's where there has to be like a discussion as to because they're looking at profits and things as well, right? I mean, they're business and they've got to look at that, and they want to make money for their IP. But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's that balance, And so for me, what I would love to see, I think it's gonna be $20 and 10,000 mints. I would love to see either $20 and like 5,000 mints, maybe 6,000 mints at the most, or $10 and like 7,500 mints or something, right? Or $15 and 7,500 mints or something. So kind of just bringing that down a little bit, to kind of add that value and just make it like that. That's what drives excitement. That's what brings people back, is they're just saying, wow, like I landed this, it's super rare. I'm really excited to have it. And a lot of times, like there are people who are like, I'm just going to flip that. But like, honestly, when you're landing something that's super rare, it just means more to you. And you're just like, wow, I got some value out of that. And I want to hold on to it longer. Like that's me, at least. So anyways, it'll be interesting to see like how they announce that. But we're getting some, Ed Feely saying 20 gems, 10,000 mint. Big A says 50 gems and 4,000. That would be crazy. That would be I mean, if they're getting 50 gems, I would be like 2,500 or like 3,000, because 50 gems for 4,000 look, I'm going for it no matter what. Well, not no matter what, but like,
don't say that.
I definitely want it. I definitely
It'll
want
be
it.
like 100 gems with like 4,000 mints. It's like, whoa.
Then I go for, honestly, like then I would just go for it in the secondary at that point, something like that. I'm like, I'll get the common. But you want the excitement, and that's the thing is the price is too high, and people are just like, well, I'll just buy from the secondary. But then they miss out on the chance, like the randomization of mint numbers and the rarity, So that's what keeps people here is that type of engagement. At least one of the things, right? But yeah.
Speaking of cool collectibles and rarity and other things, talk to us about Venom and Carnage, Randy. And what just happened? There was something interesting that happened with the price action.
So Venom and Carnage, I knew Venom would sell out because you had Wolverine sell out that had 3 times the mints. You had Gwen Stacy sell out that had 2 times the mints, and both of them were more expensive than Venom's. And Venom's super popular characters. Like, okay, we know that's going to sell out. The question is, does Carnage sell out? And they both did. Carnage obviously took a little bit longer. It took almost an hour. Venom, it took like seconds. But then something happened that I did not expect. Now, I expected the first mint and special mints to go, pretty hard. And if I take a look at some of the screenshots I have here, the first and last mint both had high sales, which is like, okay, that makes sense. They're bound to have something like that. But then you had a interesting thing. The first mint, or I'm sorry, the last mint sold for $1,750, and the first publicly available mint, number 41, sold for $1,499 or $1,500 if you round it up. So I don't know if there's going to be a secondary sale of that number 41 mint, but right now the last mint is technically worth more than the first one. It sold for $250 more. So I don't know if anyone else has seen something like that, and I don't know if anyone else is like, okay, well that's it right now, and it'll be that until somebody pays $2,500 for the first mint. And the last mint will just stay that way.
It's an interesting trend if the last mints start being worth a lot, right? Because like even the first mint isn't really the first mint, it's the first available mint, whereas the last mint is the last mint.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember who it is. I follow them, but they're a massive NFT collector. Like, what is his name?
Mr. 41?
No, this is in like the overall Web3 space. Like at one point, the person had like 100 bored apes. Like, I mean, just crazy numbers. Like they are. I don't know who this person is, but their net worth has to be in probably the hundreds of millions with with the things that they were buying, and like I don't know, but a massive NFT whale. And they were known for purchasing the last mints of like certain projects and things like that, like NBA Top Shots, last mints, and board ape, like all of these different things. They love the last mint. So there's definitely a market for certain people. And like you said, Rain, like there's a true difference between like first publicly available mint and the actual last mint, because you can't get another last mint. Like they can't add more to that, right? Whereas they can, and we've seen that where they do then release some of those not publicly available mints that all of a sudden become public, and then you're like, well, now I don't hold the lowest rarity. So there's that gamble there. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays out going forward, right? But that is something at least to be cognizant of. I mean, if you're seeing like the last mint near the floor or something, let me rephrase that. If I see the last mint near floor, I will be snagging that. Not financial advice. Let me put that.
I also think, to add on that, I'm not going to do that for like a random Cryptkin, and I'm not going to do that for a random collectible like something from Decon that not too many people are really going to be going crazy over. I would only do that for a popular character. I would do that for most things Marvel. I would do that for a lot of things Disney. One of the things I wouldn't do, which is going to be really an unpopular opinion, I'm not a fan of Up. I recognize that it's a great, fantastic movie, and everyone says that the first 10 minutes are like not the best, but that could be its own movie because it's so sweet and beautiful. Not a fan. So I would not get the last mint of Kevin, number 8. Maybe I would. I don't know, because a lot of other people like that, and they recognize that. Where have you guys seen that people are like, oh, this could be like Donnie range? Because I haven't been paying attention enough. Who's been saying that? Is that like whales?
Okay, so let's back up here. My understanding, and I wasn't in the space, but it was recorded, and I need to go back and listen to it. Emoji recorded it while he was playing and streaming on Twitch. So someone correct me, but I heard propagandists like Prop talk about it. That because Prop went and bought Kevin off the market because he said that David Yu was comparing him to Donnie in that Disney typically does not do low mints. Like that's just they don't do that. And so like this is such a low mint that this could be like a Donnie-esque in like maybe this is the only one that ever gets like those low mints. But that being said, I'll preface it with this. There have been comments made before by the team where they said, hey, we're not releasing any more golden moments, and then they release more golden moments. So like I would not take that seriously. I mean, it could be the case, but for me, I'm definitely not going out and buying Kevin based on those comments. That's too risky and too high a price for me, especially for it's cool animation. I like the animation. But yeah, like it's like $500 or something right now, $400 or $500 for that. And I was like,
and there's 18 left.
Not my thing. Yeah. And there's still 18, there's still like some left in the store. And for me, like, that's not like an IP. I love the story, but it's not something I watch a lot. My kids don't watch a lot. And so for me, I'm not going to be chasing that.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like
David said it in Spaces. Thank you. I feel like a little bit vindicated there. I was like, did I just like make that up or pass on? So, but Dingling was the massive whale that was buying up last minutes of things. Massive whale, got 233,000 followers, and just like a big whale in the space. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and that's I think who had that? Big A had that Machi Big Brother, right?
Yeah, he thought it was Machi Big Brother, but it wasn't Machi Big Brother. It was Dingling who was doing
okay.
It.
I think that this was sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, wanted to talk about the San Diego Comic-Con coming up, and our HR sponsor is here, VeVe Fan Bam, who helped put together the movie event. And she reached out to VeVe and asked if they would sponsor it, which they were kind enough to do. Thanks for putting that together, VeVe Fan Bam. We are going to love that event. That's going to be a blast. So I'll be there. Dr. Steph will be there. The real Randy Chavez will be there signing autographs. I don't think he's even charging his normal rate of $500 per autograph. So
no, just give me a smile, give me a hug, and just spread the love. That's the cost.
Literally nobody knew who Kevin was, even the Up fans. I recognize Kevin, but
did you know his name
forever ago? And it's like, how important is Kevin to me? Not important at all.
Randy was like, when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about, and I was like, is Kevin the next Donnie? And he's like, who's Kevin?
Yeah, I was like, what is this?
There you go. Right. Yeah.
Why I think this won't be it won't be just a one-off occurrence is because over the last couple months, we've had a lot of things that had 88 mints. Like we had the Tokidoki Golden Dragon, we had the Aru from Gary Baseman, we've had this. So it seems like the team is getting really
Those
good.
are
Okay,
artists
people
compared to
really
IP.
The what?
Those are artists compared to big IP. That is
Well, the
something.
Tokidoki's pretty big IP, I think. Tokidoki goes.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, not so much in the West in America, but every time I think I don't know, Doc. Have you been to a Comic-Con yet?
No. I went to Decon and I did see the line for Tokidoki, and I was like, "Yo, that's
same
crazy.
thing at Comic-Con. You'll see it next. You'll see it in a few weeks.
Oh. Speaking of, let's. I mean, as we're talking about that, right? I just got to make sure that I'm not doxing myself or anything, but. Dude, so it's my first Comic-Con. There we go, Rain. First Comic-Con, and I got a press pass. So super stoked to do that. And like I tweeted out, I was like, maybe we'll be able to get some team interviews from some of the team members of VeVe, do live streams or something like that. But guys, I'm going to be live streaming a ton while I'm there. Hopefully the internet is good. I know that VeVe Magic has a press pass. Comics and Crypto has a press pass, right? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
Be advised that for the streaming, the internet is generally pretty horrible at cons because there's so many people packed in. And then also, I was streaming at New York Comic Con. I don't know if it was last year or 2022, but I wasn't looking at the screen. Like the camera was pointed away, but they were playing Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and the channel got like muted or like the video got taken down because it was like the strike of advertising or whatever, because it was playing like Disney stuff in the back. And it was like, oh, you can't do this. It's like if I was playing the radio and a song came on, they're like, oh. So it got like unmonetized for that one thing. So just be advised of that if you go around that, you can't even mute yourself if you're on the normal YouTube. If you're on a StreamYard, you can mute yourself and that's fine. But just let you know.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. Look, Randy, I'll probably be talking to you there, right? Because you're coming.
Yeah, I don't have the tickets yet. I'll go there for a day or two maybe, but and this is just my preference. If I can quote the Italo brothers, my life is a party, my home is the club, and I just want to. I go for the parties. I go for like the app, like just the raging,
So I'm so excited.
The events themselves can be chaotic, and like it's cool because you get to see a little bit of stuff, but it is like the events, the after parties, and the meetups where all the fun is. Totally
100%.
agree.
Yeah.
100%.
So some other things we want to talk about, since we were talking about artists, Randy, do you want to cover VeVe Magic recently had something going on her channel? What was your thought?
So she was in Disney and she had an artist she was in a hotel at Disney and she had an artist that had been working for VeVe the past few months. I think they had worked for Ubisoft or some other big gaming thing beforehand. And I guess there was a bunch of red tape in the other areas that they were in. And on VeVe, he's very happy here. Happens to be, and again, I've been here for a couple months, so it's not like, oh, it's new the first few weeks. I've been there for about 4 months. And then I guess he was giving away a little bit of alpha. And like as the alpha was being given away, like the video cut out. So I don't know if she got like a text from David, like, you gotta stop, don't stop, But that's really exciting. The artist going and saying things are really happy. And not only that they get the creativity to kind of do what they want, but also the quality of what they're doing. One, the ads never look as good as the quality in the, like Carnage and Venom look good on the ads, but in the vault, and they look incredible. And then you have the VeVeverse, which is just, I don't know, like 3 layers deeper, like so much better. You've seen some teases from Metaverse Life, and I can't wait for people to get access to that. I can't wait for people to see like how incredible that is. Right now, it's we haven't heard much from them in a while. I think they might be focusing on OMI to NFT first, which hopefully I don't know, we get that in Q3 and maybe some VeVe verse in Q4, but that was pretty exciting when VeVe Magic had that stream.
Yeah, dude, like
comment.
Yeah, that's what I was reading too. And in fact, like it made me think of Patient Hodler's like openings where he plays a clip where you got Yellen being like Binance, and then who's the other guy, and he's like Binance, and then she's like, actually it's Binance.
Yeah,
corrects him incorrectly. Oh, it's so
it's so funny.
Yeah, Janet Yellen, man. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah. Randy, you had some thoughts on the Pride NFT in the following. What was that?
I was gonna try to do. I feel like I don't. My jokes are different. I was gonna try to do like a very sarcastic video where people are like, oh, okay, it's a bit that he's doing, because VeVe has in the past dropped Pride NFTs, and I think back in the day they made like a Pride tweet, like Happy Pride Month or whatever, and like obviously in this Pride Month had ended, and there was no Pride 2 drop. There was nothing from Givenchy, and I was gonna make a video that was like, is VeVe anti-LGBT? And I was like, all right, this is definitely not gonna do any good for anyone. I was just scrap that. And it was supposed to be just like, there has been no Pride utility. There's been nothing, but again, I didn't do that. But for people that don't know, there's a very large cult following of that Pride NFT. They have a group on Telegram. I don't know if they have a Discord or not. And they're all like, they're super excited about it. I don't know if it's because of Rewind, Givenchy, whatever, but they're all like really passionate about it. And they grab one every now and then. And as soon as they grab one, everyone's like, hey, I bought this off the market. And everyone's like, yo, like it's like a celebration. And I don't even know why I'm in that group. I think they just let me in just for whatever reason. But they're all cool. I was like, oh, will that have a resurgence? And in the same way that crypto narratives run at different times, whether it's banking, it's DeFi, digital collectibles, AI, whatever. In the last bull run for NFTs, not everything ran up at once. It was, you had, I don't know, you had Golden Moments run at one time, and then you had, Star Wars, and then you had other things. So I think at some point in the digital collectible narrative, within that narrative, that VeVe narrative will hit. And again, not everything will want to run. So you'll have some grails that'll probably run first, and then have the blue chip stuff. And then, okay, Pride, this is cool, this is artsy. That'll probably run as well. Obviously, again, not financial advice, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Now, Doc, you got your prize in from the Ecomi Secret Rare group.
Guys.
Let's see it.
Guys, I'm so stoked for this. Okay. So I haven't even opened it. I've just got the tube here.
Unboxing. I love this game. Oh, look at this.
So shout out to Steve Cannon, right? I'm gonna let's do this here. Let's do this. Yeah. I am so stoked to see this thing. Randy, do you want to kind of give them the
Yeah, I'll give them background.
Yeah.
Steve Cannon is a professional wildlife photographer that often spends 8 to 10 weeks on a single location, and spends most of that time in one specific spot in hopes that he can get the perfect shot. Now, he oftentimes does, but unfortunately, some of that time he could spend a couple of months in a certain location, wrenching his back, being in awkward positions, and there's a glare, the animal doesn't turn. So every now and then it's very hard work. It's very tiring, but it's worth it. A lot of his stuff, now granted, a lot of his stuff is usually one of 11. There's usually 11 prints that he makes, and they often sell for about $20,000, $25,000. There's a couple of things that he does that is a bit scarcer. The Predator project that you normally see on my back wall. Obviously, I'm not home today, but that's a one of 3. And Doc, did he tell you what this is a one of? Is it like a one of 11 or a one of 5 or something like that?
I believe it's a one of 11, but I got mint number 1.
Oh, nice.
And he said that he signed it. So
okay, I think he did sign mine, yeah. But again, a lot of times these things sell for like $20,000, $25,000. So he's a very high-end photographer. He's been on the podcast. Again, he's got some beautiful, beautiful stuff on his Insta. He's in the Ecomi Secret Rare group. And he actually gave me a call when we got the Ecomi secret rare airdrop. He says like, we're like, Randy, what was this? Like, oh, they gave us an airdrop for having 10 million tokens. No, he's got a lot more than 10 million tokens on the app. Like all of his tokens are on the app. And he says, oh, they didn't have to do that. I was like, yeah, I know. It was just something for the holders. Like, this is great. This is why I love VeVe. This is the combination of the marriage between the two companies that they didn't have to do, but they're doing it. Like, he's so passionate. And I just freaking love that guy. Got a good crew.
Oh, man,
and,
guys. Okay.
Rain, you might have to take us widescreen because I think the widescreen, it'll be able to see. Yeah, this is better. You guys have such cool backgrounds. I'm in like this grandma house.
Oh, this is such a nice. I'm like so afraid.
You got to get it framed.
Well, all right.
Let's see.
Harambe.
Oh my gosh.
So it's not Harambe, but I
know.
Believe yeah, Bunieri. I believe is how that's pronounced. But guys, this is incredible, man. This is such an epic. I cannot wait to get this framed. I was talking with my wife about where to hang this, and honestly, I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old kid, and I'm just like, I just do not trust them. So I'm going to be hanging this up in my work office, so that at least until my kids get a little bit older, this does not get messed up. Yep, and there's his signature. Oh man, I'm so pumped. So anyways, Steve, thank you so much. This is incredible. I am so stoked. I'm like nervous even touching this thing. I should have put on some gloves. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wonder how close he had to get to that like 450-pound beast. I wonder, like, he looks like he's 10 feet away. He's probably a bit farther away, but he's looking right at him. He's looking right at that camera. And that thing can close the distance like that.
Oh yeah, and we're just like a twig compared to the muscle mass that those things have. Like, it's crazy. Like the number of people that have died from orangutans is like really, really high. Like people don't even realize. In like apes like that or a big gorilla, they're like twice or 3 times as strong as an orangutan.
So sorry, go ahead.
Well, Randy, I want to ask you, Sailor Moon's birthday was June 30th.
Yes,
and like, there was no announcement of it coming on VeVe, but do you think that maybe VeVe gets Sailor Moon at some point?
Yeah, because of Viz Media, they're likely going to go and get. That's one of the licenses that they have, and so be advised, it wasn't Sailor Moon. That's not like the first episode. It's just Usagi, the character that is Sailor Moon, when she has her Moon Prism power and she transforms in Sailor Moon. Usagi, that's her actual birthday. So there's some local lore for you there. But yeah, that's one of the licenses that they have. I think that's probably one of the things that they should put out first, because it is well known, but it's not like the most popular ever. But it's been around for 30-something years. However, there is that argument that a couple of people have said, is like, okay, well, when Marvel came out, boom, Spider-Man, that's their biggest IP ever. And then when Disney came out, boom, partner statue, literally that first walked right by. Oh my God. When partner statue came out, Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney, a double. Oh my God, I need to get one of those. That's a huge thing. So for Viz Media or any type of anime or manga, like they do have Ultraman coming out soon. I think they just made that post today, so that might be the first one, which makes sense because we already have Ultraman in the collectible version, but we'll get him in the manga version, or at least a version of him. So yeah, they might just roll out after that with the My Hero Academia. It could be Dragon Ball Z, it could be whatever it is, but I think Sailor Moon would be a good. I don't have any Sailor Moon tattoos yet, but maybe one day. Moon Prism power.
So are you going to commit right now to get one when they announce that on VeVe?
I'll definitely get a version of Sailor Moon. Yeah, 100%. Sailor Mars is probably my favorite. She had a little bit of an attitude and likes to hit first and ask questions later. Sailor Moon, she's such a space cadet. Usagi's so like scatterbrained, and then when she turns into Sailor Moon, she's mostly good, except she has this big crush on Tuxedo Mask, who's like, he's got some weird powers. He can like throw a rose and stop things, but she gets a little boy crazy with that. But it's a great show. Yeah, I'll get not whatever they put out, but I'll get a lot of stuff that they put out. I feel like I'm nerding out here.
So now a lot of comments come in. We haven't gone back and addressed them. Wanted to make sure I got the topics that you gentlemen wanted to talk about. Scrolling all the way back up before we even started this show, Vladimir asked thoughts on Ron's cryptotherapy, saying OMI will go down to 0.00034. Always nice to get it cheaper, but curious if you guys think it'll actually get that cheap. What do you think, Doctor?
Look, I had in a previous episode of OMI is my homie, right? Kind of taking a step back because Ron and I had gotten into it a little bit on Twitter. And I think he's pretty decent, man, at TA. So but I'm not the TA. So that's where I would defer to Rain to say, I don't know what those support lines are, but I'm assuming that Ron was looking at support lines and saying, hey, if it doesn't hit this, or if it doesn't bounce off here, then it breaks that support level. Here's the next level of support. And so if that's the case, then potentially, but I just didn't see Ron's cryptotherapy's stream, so I don't know what he was looking at or those support things. So could it potentially? Now I do think that OMI to NFT is coming. So Wes early on said OMI to NFT in 2025, and I said, want to make a bet, Wes, to which he has not responded. And it's funny, kind of trolls there, and but I do believe that OMI to NFT is coming here end of July or end of August. I mean, but if it's not end of August, that's where I start to say, and I expect it. I expect it before the end of August. And if it's not, man, then I'll come out and say I don't know what's going on. But that's wild. That's wild that if OMI to NFT was your top priority and you can't get it in 8 months, that's concerning. I'll just come out and say that's concerning, and I don't know what the issues would be at that point. So that's why So we'll see. I'm hoping by the end of this month actually that we hear something.
So a lot of this is just bear market stuff, right? So FUD, one of the arguments made, I think it was last week by somebody, is OMI's just gone down for 3 years, and so therefore it'll never stop going down. And that's this thing that in investing we call recency bias, where it feels like what has been happening is going to continue to happen. And it does until it doesn't. Now, this doesn't show the full history. There is a chart that shows the full history, but it's way harder to really see how much information can you really see here? Not very much. But if you did get really close, you could see that is the next support line. So if OMI was to break down, now notice it broke through this and it's come back up and retested right here. It could break down and it could come back down to these levels.
But I can't see those levels, Rain. Can we make that bigger?
This is as big as we can make it, right?
Okay. Yeah. There we go. That's a little bit better.
You can see a little bit better. But if somebody's watching on their phone, they don't even have a chance of really reading this. Especially if you're trying to look at it on this chart, which unfortunately is the only one I found that has the whole history, but trying to read this back then is really difficult because it hit some
support line.
Yeah, it hit some resistance as it was trying to break to the upside, and then it blasted up through it and has come back down over about 2.5 to almost 3 years, which is the entire bear market. But what a lot of people that are newer to investment cycles don't realize that the higher sometimes something goes, the more it retraces and gets punished. Because what happens is a lot of people FOMO in at different levels of highs, and then they just slowly bleed out as the price gets punished, and there's this huge accumulation zone. So we've had this massive accumulation zone, and tons of people calling OMI dead. And to me, that's music to my ears, because that's what made me some of my biggest gains last bear market was some of the projects that I felt were fundamentally strong that the majority of people were calling dead, but the team was still working hard. They had good plans. Often those plans were delayed and behind schedule, but they really still had a good vision. They had a good team behind it. And that's exactly where Ecomi and VeVe is. So I think it's a fantastic price. If you caught my episode earlier today with Paul, he said, now he doesn't buy till the trend has totally turned around, but he said this price action was really, really interesting. The fact that it popped back up like this, like he did, he said that might be signs that it's ready to turn around. But of course, he doesn't buy till it breaks levels up higher. So he wouldn't be buying till it was above 0.12 cents. And he says, I don't mind missing buying the bottom. I just want to buy after it's clear that the trend has already gone the other way, because, he doesn't just invest in crypto. So he waits for charts in whatever he buys, not usually knowing any fundamentals, to clearly be showing an uptrend. He buys and then holds that for a little while it's in its uptrend. And it's not clear that the bleeding has stopped in OMI yet. I like to buy based on fundamentals, where I'm buying based on the project and the research and the team behind it. I like to buy prices where I feel like it's massively undervalued. And this whole zone, in my opinion, has been massively undervalued. So I've been dollar cost averaging in. And it's cool. Like, maybe it even gets cheaper before it goes up. A lot of people complain, like they're like, oh my gosh, your investment in OMI is down. And it's like, yeah, I mean, at one point, my investment in Axie Infinity was way down. One point, my investment in Cardano was way down. And at one point, actually, all my gainers, my dollar cost average was down from what my dollar cost average was. And then it went the other way. So actually, when you're fundamental investing and you're buying lows, that almost always happens to you. The price then for a while goes lower than what you even bought in at, because you can almost never perfectly time the bottom. And it looks like you're an idiot and don't know what you're talking about. And then the run happens. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, because they miss buying it cheap, because buying it cheap means sometimes it still may go even cheaper on you.
So one thing that you were talking about, just like people panic and you make bets based on fundamentals. I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie The Big Short or read the book. Reading the book, it's a lot more involved. It's awesome. Such a good book. And anyone like a finance nerd like me or an economist nerd like me, we eat that stuff up, right? Because it deals with like the macro economy and then like just irrational behavior by the public. But two of the people in the story, The Big Short, like real life characters, right? They and what were their names again?
I forget their names.
It's Jamie Mai and Charlie Ledley. Like that's their names. But basically, like one of the things that they would do is they would find an event that had happened, right? And like that had taken, not just necessarily an event that had happened, but that they believe would happen. They're looking for situations or companies. And one of the scenarios they give is that the CEO had been accused of some like improprieties or something. And the stock tanked because of it. And then and it was like, hey, he's going to court. He's going to sue, for defamation of character and stuff. And so they go and they reach out to like all like the acquaintances of this individual. And they're like, hey, does this sound like this? Like this guy did it? Do you believe that he did it? Did he do these things that have been alleged? And like all of these people were like, no, like we don't think he has. We don't believe that. Here's his character. Here's who he is. And so then what they did is they bought options on the stock after like the court date, because they were like, look, we believe that he's going to be vindicated here. And if he is, then the stock price is going to jump up significantly, right? And they've made a lot of money off that. And I think that's like, I'm trying to compare that a little bit to what how Rain thinks, and like how I agree with that. That thought process is like looking at the fundamentals. It doesn't always work out, first and foremost, right? So like full disclosure there, it doesn't. But I think the times that it does, historically for Rain, like they have been massive hits. And so like I'm willing to take that risk, right? And it's not just with OMI, but with a lot of other projects now where I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, the fundamentals, if this hits. And I think that was one of the differences where I kind of like got into it with Ron, or I felt like there was this discrepancy, is he was looking at it from a trading standpoint and looking at this price point right here and like short term, is that worth throwing in where maybe there's 2 or 3 X's like in other projects to 5 X's, maybe 10 X's, but like I believe fundamentally, like where I'm going is I'm trying to look at the projects that have the potential for a lot bigger X's than that. And I'm willing to hold longer term for that. And I don't really worry about the noise. What I do worry about, right, is the things like, okay, is this really going to, is OMI to NFT really going to take 8 months? Why is that taking 8 months? Right? Like those are fundamentals that I need to better understand, where I'm diving into and saying, hey, do I need to de-risk some if there's an issue here that I'm not seeing, I can't see into that. So, but I do believe, and I guess this is just my belief in the team, that I believe that they're going to get that done and cross the finish line here within the next couple months. And if not, we'll have a conversation about it and we'll see.
There's a scenario that somebody brought out, or I guess not, it's a question saying like, okay, well, at one point MCP was here and there were some bugs. So it was here. It didn't work the way we wanted at first. And they fixed that relatively quickly. And that's one scenario that could happen. It could be similar to, I don't even want to say VeVe because it's not here yet. But yeah, we'd say VeVe. They did get it out, but it's only for X amount of beta users. And every now and then they add some more people. Could it be something like that where they'll have it in beta? Like it's out, but it's only for beta users. And then it's in beta for another, 6 months. If that's the case, that would be a little bit concerning, because then you have on one end, not everybody gets it. So that's less burn that's going on. That's if we have burns, that's just less use that you have. And then on the other end, it will just be one of those things of the 1% versus everyone else. Oh, who gets to decide who's in there? And it's most likely people that are going to have OMI, and it's most likely people that are going to do that type of trading. I would be a waste if I got in there because I'm not selling my own. I don't know. Maybe I would. There's some things that look so, like there's a couple of Luke Skywalkers out there, sub 100 rares, animated, for like less than $200, like each. There's a couple things that are pretty undervalued, and maybe if you don't have the cash on hand to do that, and you have a bunch of OMI like I do, But again, as Luke Skywalker, that type of thing could 10 or 20x, but I think that OMI does even better. So I probably shouldn't do that. I don't know what scenario that is, and who's their secret partner that they've been talking about? Like, is that the one who's doing
bigger
it?
than Disney, right? Or no, sorry.
That's two separate things.
You're talking about the secret partner.
That's the IP that they were going to announce. But then they have a partner for the OMI to NFT, and what exactly are they doing? Are they just helping facilitate transactions? Are they going to go in and make it so they're like an exchange? I don't know who it is. Do they have experience with this type of thing? So there's a lot of unanswered questions we just kind of don't know yet. I don't know if I could say this.
Well, I mean, look, you got Cryptoys who partnered with Rarible. That's an option. You got Stacker like that. I mean, obviously has a feed into VeVe, so like that's a possibility. But then there's like other unannounced, like VeVe's pretty good at like holding things close to their vest. So it could be a company like that just comes out of nowhere, right? Like, I'm very interested to see who that partner is. But yeah, and I'm what I would like is when it is finally announced, I would love to kind of get like a recap on that. Here's some of the issues that we ran into, right? Here's where we thought we were going to be. Things like that are so helpful, honestly. Like once something is released, be like, hey, like, let's do a recap of kind of what we went through. This was the process. These are the hurdles or the speed bumps. And sometimes you can't talk about certain things if there was a partner involved and they don't want to throw them under the bus. But the things that they can talk about, I actually think that that's pretty that transparency actually helps build trust with the users there.
So last bear market, there was this project that was massively behind on all their milestones. Everything was behind. And, they nicknamed the project, instead of Cardano, they called it Cardaleno. And it was kind of a catchy, funny, like, it's so true. And one of the things I look at is like, okay, so they said they would run the race in 4 minutes, and they're at like 17 minutes and 36 seconds, right? And one of the things I do is I look at, well, who else is running the race and what do their timelines look like? Okay, like 17 minutes isn't near what they said the 4 minute mile that they were going to run. Yeah, but they're at 17 minutes. So I look at where the other racers are at, and they were like doing really good. So I was like, okay, I can still believe in this. So look, would I like to see OMI to NFT? Yes. I'm a little bit numb to delays because I've been in crypto for 7 years and every project has massive delays. They all promise like some 4-minute mile. And then, you know, at like minute 16, you're like, have you crossed the finish line yet? Oh no. When? Soon. And like, it just happens. So like if OMI to NFT happens soon, great. A lot of people say if OMI to NFT doesn't happen by the bull market, they're going to miss the bull market. They're just wrong on that. They say, well, NFTs and digital collectibles aren't going to hit this bull market. Why? Why wouldn't they? As people wake up to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, what happens is the cascade of research goes crazy. All these people come in and they want to be like the next experts, and they're looking for something that's undervalued that has substance to it. And money rolls into substance like crazy. And when people that are new to crypto, they find out that there's this app with Disney NFTs and Batman NFTs, and or if you just want to call them digital collectibles, fine. Digital collectibles and all these major brands that they like. And oh my gosh, you can put them in augmented reality. Then you have all these people, all these new crypto geniuses walking around sharing with all their friends how amazing this thing is. And then you start getting some people piling in. You see prices go up. And what happens when prices go up? Every crypto YouTube channel covers it massively. And then the prices really go up. And I haven't heard a good argument really of why that's not going to happen with digital collectibles this cycle. Is it a possibility it doesn't happen? Yeah, there's a possibility the sun doesn't come up tomorrow either. But like, I haven't heard a good argument as to why digital collectibles won't go when this cascade effect happens, because it is tied to when blockchain gaming goes crazy. People will notice, oh, what's this VeVe thing? And as money comes into the crypto space and all these people are looking for the next big thing, I don't know why they don't discover, oh, this Batman thing's a big deal. This DC, there's some DC comic collectibles. There's a whole bunch of Marvel. In fact, there's Marvel digital comics. Oh my gosh, this is cool. And so I haven't heard a good case why that's not going to happen yet. Did have a funny comment near the beginning of the show with Big A. Check my portfolio today. It's down to welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order level? That we've all been there before.
That have you seen that meme? I love it where it's like the guy's still in his McDonald's uniform, just like laying there, like in the dark with his eyes like wide open. Like it's just like, oh man, the crypto space and the memes, the internet wins so often, man. I just love the ingenuity and creativity. Just crushes me. Oh, guys, I have a story to tell you. Actually, can I? And then we can get to Dino. You know, Dino, like he has some concerns. And look, I think that we've been talking about this and our thoughts on where we see OMI going. But okay, so I was talking to my wife actually about this Chevron case, right, with the SEC, because she's a professor and she teaches immunology and hematology at a university. And she was talking about like the healthcare industry, right, and the implications that this has on there. And so then I was talking about how it impacts crypto, and it was funny because then I said, oh yeah, but like a lot of the normies like yourself, and she's like, I'm not a normie. And I was like, like, no, like you're a normie. You're a normie, right? She's like, I'm not a normie. I'm like, yeah, you are. And she's like, no, I'm not. And then she's like, what did she say? Like, so she started talking about it, but then we had to go pick up the kids. And so she texts me and she's like, would a normie be wearing an O Millionaire shirt? And she had like the O Millionaire, like the OMI, comma 000, like shirt with the whale right on it. And I was like, touche. Oh man, it made me, and it was funny. Like,
so funny.
She was, but she's like, I am not a normie. I was like, all right, you were a step above a normie. That's true there. But that just made me
just one step above.
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, but here's the thing, like it's cool because just recently, we've been talking more about crypto, right? Like she's just kind of like, in fact, crypto was a 4-letter word for her because like I spent so much time researching it and things that she was just like, oh my gosh, just stop. And I was like, I will eventually, but I'm like, I'm diving into this. Like I'm putting my money in it. Like I got to make sure I know what I'm doing. and I'm going to make mistakes and things, but the more I learn and understand, the better I can adjust, So we've had those conversations, but just recently, over the last 6-7 months, like we've had more conversations about it, and it's been cool to kind of get her to better understand we can have these conversations. So I am converting my normie wife into a crypto degen. That's to go by the end of this year. So
nice. I call the crypto normies crypto civilians, right? They come in and they're just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm buying more Doge. Why are you buying Doge? Because everyone's buying Doge and it's at 35 cents and it's going to go to $7. Why is it going to go to $7? I don't know. Everyone says it's going to. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Step away from the buy button slowly.
So wait, look at O'Millionaire Tees, right? That's O'Milly, and he's got his profile pic is that OMI, the O'Millionaire. Like that's the start of the O'Millionaire shirt. That's yeah, and it's a cool. I love that shirt. And then Big A's comment, man. TBD, my friend. That just happened today. So I'll let you know next time if I end up sleeping on the sofa.
That's funny. All right. So finally getting to Dino's comment about, can we address the paralysis with the OMI token? Like, what's going on? Don't they like money?
Does he mean paralysis of the price or paralysis of development?
Probably both.
I think he means paralysis of the price. But you're right. It could be development. Let's assume it's price.
It's just one of those things. I mean, most of the top 100, I think, is down the last month or so. Bitcoin's down. I mean, just a lot of crypto's just gotten hammered the last month. Now, obviously, he's talking about only beyond the last month, talking about the last couple of years. It's not like they haven't done anything for the token. They gave us light staking. They gave us the bronze tickets. They gave us MCP points. They gave us the airdrops. They got us on 2 new exchanges. It's just, again, when that narrative isn't here, it's just like, we're building, we're constantly pulling that spring back, and we will let go eventually. That stuff will take off. It's just nobody knows when that's going to happen. It could happen next month, or it could happen next year. We might be here for another year. We don't know.
Yeah, like the paralysis thing, it's just the frustrations that people get when the general market is down and other things run. Like this part in the bull market, like it's the early bull market. And so there's mistakes that people make throughout the whole cycle. And one of the mistakes that people make when you get into this zone is it's not everything's down, or people would just be complaining about the whole market. What really irritates people is that a few things run, but not what they're holding. And so then they're like, oh, they feel so mad, like the effing team that I bought, it's not, and if I had had the money in XYZ meme coin, it would be worth so much more. And then sometimes they even sell to roll it into where the action is. And it usually works out poorly for them. Not always, but the odds are bad for you. Why? Because when you buy what's high, hoping it goes higher, it's risky. And you're selling what's low, which at some point the narrative will often hit for it. And when it does, you sold it at the lows. You don't get that upside of it. And I know this because when I was fairly new to crypto and going through my first cycle, guess who had to do this himself? I knew better because I had been investing for like 18 years before even finding crypto. But I just had to touch that hot stove. Maybe it's different in crypto. And then I touched that hot stove. I was like, yes, it burned me. And I think I did one trade. It ended up working out decent. And like 3 or 4 trades, it didn't. And the other things that I sold totally ran. And I was like, frick, I knew better. And I had to do it anyway. So look, everyone gets to try it for themselves. And if you're right, cool. And if, works out against you, just be like, yeah, the odds overall. What I try to do in crypto is I try to take odds that are better for me than they are against me. Some people are like, Rain, but some of the stuff you invest in goes to zero. And it's like, it's true. Some of the businesses I invest in fail. Because if you think about what you're doing in crypto anyway, you're early stage business investing. And the failure rates in traditional business, say you were to go to a tech sector, and like a pretty good venture capitalist, which is an early stage business investor, only 1 out of 10 things that he invests in will do really, really well. Like 6 to 7 of them will fail entirely. And like 2 or 3, maybe 4 of them kind of do okay. And over a 10-year period, if they make 7x on their money over that 10-year entire period, they're pretty happy. They're like, they're some of the best venture capitalists out there. And in the crypto space, we have this accelerated 4-year cycle, which means often you're not having to wait 10 years to see whether you get massive gains and whether the company survives. A lot of times the company just has to survive until the next bull run. And if it does, and it has some substance behind it, usually the narrative will come up and it will pump massively. And so then if it ultimately fails 3 years later, it doesn't matter. You're out. You sold when it was massively up. And so it just is taking something that normally you can make decent money in venture capital investing if you start with some decent money. But in crypto, you can, because the gains can be so much higher, you don't have to have millions of dollars to make tens of millions of dollars. You can start with 10,000, maybe over a 4-year period. If you're good, you can grow that into 70,000 or 700,000. And then the next cycle, get into the millions, maybe if you're really good, into the tens of millions. So what does really good look like? Really good looks like learning how to do your research to find where the odds really are stacked in your favor. And then taking some bets. And guess what? If you're taking bets that have potential high gains, that means they also have higher risk, and some of them are going to fail. But on average, even if 50% of what you bought failed and you diversified across a number of them, some of them will go 50 to 100 or 200x. And so your overall gains crush what traditional tech VCs make in crypto, at least for a period of maybe 4 to 8 more years. And then who knows, that the major gains might be done. So that's what has me excited about this sector. I like OMI because actually extremely substantive project. And we can look and be like, what have you done for me lately? Where the hell is OMI to NFT? But we just listed actually a whole bunch of things that they delivered over the last year. And a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, but they did that 5 months ago. And it's like, we forget to look at where we've been and how frustrated we are because those things were delayed. And then they finally roll up and then it's like, yeah, but when are you doing the next thing? Like as human beings, that's always what we're thinking about. But they have moved way forward from 3 years ago. Is it as fast as we would have liked? No. Is that normal? Very normal. Good team? I don't know. I continue to get surprised by really big partnerships with really big IP that I'm like, oh, this is a big deal. Not everyone realized it yet, but this is a big deal. Way back in March of 2021, I was like, wow, you know, this whole Batman license, this is a really big deal. Most people don't recognize it yet, but this is a really big deal. Like, I don't know for certain that this will catch on, but I think it will. And that there's Todd McFarlane Batman for 80 gems, like seems like a steal of a deal. And the truth is I literally lost half my YouTube audience. They stopped watching my videos because I was covering this stupid Batman thing. And I needed to get back to the real substantive things of Cardano being at $2 instead of covering this whole Batman thing. And I was like, Cardano's at $2. Like it was 1.7 cents. It's now at $2. I don't want to keep covering it because then you're going to buy high hoping it goes higher. And Batman seems like a deal at 80 gems. And turns out I was right on that. It went to like 16,000 ever so shortly, briefly for like a couple days. I was like, I was kicking myself because I sold one at 11,000 gems. I was like, dang it, I could have got 16,000 for it. But from 80 bucks to 11,000, really not bad.
I don't want to hear it rain. I mean, that was one of the things that Randy said that we should talk about, which some of our biggest drop the bag moments on VeVe. And like, not that it was a full drop the bag, but like just my timing on, I sold a couple Todd McFarlane Batmans. So like, it was like, I sold one at like 3K and then one at like 3.5K. And then I sold like the Superman at like 1K or something, or maybe like 1,200. And then like within 3 days, Todd jumped to like 10 grand. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I'm so, and it's funny. This is what crypto does to you, right? Like there's this greed element that we have, right? Like I just bought a Todd McFarlane Batman for 100 gems or 80 gems or whatever it was, right? And sold it for like $3,000. And then I'm complaining that I didn't sell it for 10,000. And it's just like, I got to take a step back and be like, yo, that was legit. And I actually did sell like the top of the Pride poster I sold my Pride for like 11.5, 11.2, something like that,
Nice.
like right near the top there. So, but definitely fumbled the bag on, and there was a couple times, man, where I risked it where I didn't have gems. I'm trying to remember which one it was that I didn't have gems in my account, and then I went for the drop, and I landed the drop, and then I tried to buy the gems, and it didn't work, and it shut me out, and I was just like,
No.
oh yeah. And so after that moment, I was like, I will always have gems in there. I'm not gonna risk it on like a big IP or a big drop like that. I had to do that.
Yeah, and anime peeps coming. I gotta save those gems. I think mine was probably Vader, where I was lucky enough to get ultra rare Vader on the drop a few years ago, and obviously got it for 80, and then I think I sold it for like I think I sold it for like 600, which now is good because I think they're like 200 now, but then they went up to like 2,800, and I was like, bad times. I should probably get one of those now because I'll probably be kicking myself if I don't. They do this on rate cuts in September, so alt season starts then, which means it's probably a wrong direct prediction. Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for these rate cuts for like months now. I hope they come in September. Again, you'll see that market melt up. You'll have trillions rush into it, and it's part of that's going to go to crypto. I mean, you have Bitcoin, Ethereum ETFs, then you have Solana ETFs that are being applied for. I don't know if they're going to be ETFs for the top 10, how many of them will be approved, how many will be disapproved, but yeah.
My guess is that Bitcoin will run some more before a lot of money transitions to alts. And maybe I'm wrong there, but I don't see why it won't play out that way, because what gets the normies' attention or the total civilians' attention is Bitcoin running. And then they kind of wake up and then they start like looking. Maybe it plays out differently if some altcoin like Solana really goes crazy. And then everyone starts talking about Solana and throws it in. And then we have altcoin season before really Bitcoin goes higher. Historically, Bitcoin takes off, it gets everyone's attention, it then runs into alts. And the rate cuts will put more money both into the stock market and into crypto. What the timing shakes out to be, I just think Bitcoin is going to run some more first, right? I watched some people's analysis like, oh my gosh, the altcoins are going to run versus Bitcoin. And I was like, the chart suggests it might. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't see why it would. So yes, the chart's at a point that it could break that way, but I don't see why it would break that way. I think Bitcoin's going to run some more. And you see massive institutional buying in Bitcoin still while it's been down. In fact, probably it's down because they've been trying to release news to freak everyone out so they can continue to buy it while it's down. Mo Collection 31 said, yeah, but Rain, we shouldn't have to wait for a run in digital collectibles narrative in order for a release and technical developments. I don't think they're holding back the technical developments for the run in that narrative. They're just continuing to roll them out as they're ready. And the timelines get missed all the time in software development. Like when I worked for a company called Accenture years ago, we came in and we're doing some consulting to some entities in California. And one of our competitors started 3 years before us doing some work in the same field that we were for some of the counties in California. We came in and had ours finished within 2 years, and theirs was like delayed for another 3 years. So like 9 total years. And sometimes that happens in like software development, and it just gets delayed. So it might be from my time over at Accenture and just knowing how often software development and things related to software end up taking longer than you think, that it's not surprising to me when these crypto projects miss timelines all the time. So to me, I'm just kind of numb to it. I'm like, yeah, of course they miss their timeline. I'm actually surprised when a company hits their timeline. Like Illuvium's like, yeah, we're finally going to do our public launch on the 25th of July. And I was like, well, count me surprised if it does happen that day. Why? Things happen and mess up. They are on track for that, but who knows?
Look, I got to give a shout out to my corn fam, Kopi Bohr. He is a stalwart in the cornucopias community, and that's a project that I've been bullish on ever since they launched, and it's been like almost like 3 years now. When did they launch? End of 2021. So maybe it's just 2.5 years, something like that. But look, you guys should check out the videos in the project there. It's so awesome. And I really compare the community of cornucopias a lot to VeVe community. Just really passionate, super friendly, welcoming. So yeah, shout out to Kobe Bohr. Yeah, really appreciate you, fam.
Yeah, I do think blockchain gaming is going to be a massive narrative in this upcoming bull run. And some people say, well, the video games in blockchain gaming aren't near where AAA level games are. And it's like, they're not wrong there. But what I think they're missing is the value of ownership in being able to own or partially own your assets versus you don't own anything there, is a really big deal. And it's a really big deal because you get to capture some of the value of the increase over time. And that's a real big deal for people. Imagine if World of Warcraft all of a sudden went on blockchain and you could easily sell your account without getting it shut down, without getting penalized if they find out about it. In fact, what if they totally embraced it and provided a marketplace for you, as well as some other marketplaces that interacted with your assets, and you get some really rare drop from beating a boss that you could then sell for $30,000? I think they would have their player base like 10x over like a month and then continue to grow from there. And the amount of revenues they'd make if they just took a small fraction of that, of, you know, people changing hands, like selling stuff to each other, they would blow out the revenues that they're making right now. They're just missing the boat on that. And a lot of times it's innovators that come in and scoop that up before the existing businesses even realize what's happening. So Cornucopias is there, like Illuvium is another one I'm a fan of. A lot of blockchain gaming companies I cover. In fact, half my investments in the crypto space are in blockchain gaming because it's a narrative that I think really goes massive. Number two, there's not a lot of regulatory interference in the blockchain gaming space. So in decentralized finance, one of the problems is there's a lot of existing finance companies that have a lot of lobbyists, so that they have a lot of support from politicians that really come and get in the way of the technology being adopted and slowing things down. I mean, what do you think Gary Gensler's been doing? Do you think he's been representing the public and trying to make sure that we're just as safe as possible? No, usually they're representing existing interests and trying to take out the new upstart competition that's coming in that, like decentralized finance, has some real innovation. But one of the challenges is like the existing entrenched interests have huge political power, and that gets in the way. Blockchain gaming, there are some huge entrenched political interests, but they never really spent a whole ton on lobbyists. So they just don't have the political power that banks have. And so I just don't think there's going to be as much political interference in that narrative.
When you talked about the quality, I think people mean like the graphics, and the graphics, yeah, like the AAA games, those graphics are insane. I think some metaverses are going to be like that, but there are a bunch of AAA games that I've played that are good, and some of the story's great, and the voice acting's great. They get celebrities there, but you know, call me old school, but I still prefer, again, half the time at least, a lot of the old school Nintendo games like that. Some of them were just harder back in the day. Like, everyone ever try to play like Battletoads? That is one, or any of like the. That is one of the hardest games I think I've ever.
That jet ski thing is crazy.
And a lot of games now are, the hard part comes from playing like these 12-year-old Asian kids in Korea that'll just snipe you because the reaction times are just incredible. Like the story mode, I think like 8-year-olds can beat Call of Duty story mode. 8-year-olds cannot beat Battletoads. 8-year-olds cannot beat the Lion King game. Can't beat the Aladdin game. They can't beat any of that. It's far too difficult. Now, obviously, to be a top tier gamer, but again, that's what I like. So AAA games are great, but I feel like there's a lot of room for disruption in that, and that's where blockchain gaming can come in. Does it do that? I don't know, but I think it has the opportunity to.
Yeah, completely agreed. And some of the like Axie Infinity did so well, even though in my opinion the game was extremely boring. And it was very like simplistic in that you could earn so much smooth love potion per day. The smooth love potion could be used to breed your Axies to then create more Axies. And so there wasn't a real big like overall in-depth ecosystem. Very simple. And yet, because you could actually capture the value from playing, millions and millions and millions of people came in. In fact, we had a comment on that from someone talking about how it really took off in Asia. It did. And that, like, people figured out when a lot of the economies were getting shut down around the world, like the people with a factory job that might make $1,000 or $300 even a month in the Philippines were like, wait, I can play this Axie Infinity game. I can not have to buy a team and share it with whoever buys my team, and I get 50% and they get 50%, and I can earn like $100 or half of $100 a day. So if I played every day, I could make $1,500 a month. And Axie Infinity absolutely went crazy during that time. But, you know, like when the price of the token started to go down and the price of things started to go down, well, then the model partially collapsed. Yeah, Big A, I'm trying to look for your comment. One of the challenges when we have all these comments is trying to look up and find it. I don't know.
What comments are you looking for?
I don't know that anyone could predict Axie. Was a terrible game, only took off when a bunch of... I predicted Axie. Did I predict it would go as high as it did? No, just that they were one of the first, and I thought this idea of blockchain gaming would do really, really well. And hope that Axie Infinity would be that. It went about 3,000x from what I bought at. So it ended up doing pretty good, better than I thought even. But yeah, nobody could have predicted how high it went. I didn't. I definitely didn't. You know, this is actually a key thing that I think about in investment cycles and buyer behavior. Like Big A is exactly right. Like I was in real estate as well during this time, during the time of the big short. So this is 2002 through 2005, and real estate was booming, and they were wrapping these mortgages, and they were then selling them as securities, and they called them mortgage-backed securities. And it's like the default rate was really, really low because they had made it so easy for people to get loans. There were way more people able to buy homes. And there was this housing boom that all the prices were going up. And when all the prices are going up, you don't have to get foreclosed on your home because you can just put it on the market and sell it. So the default rate went really, really low. And, you know, they were selling these mortgage-backed securities, and they're like, yeah, and they don't default. The default rate is so low, and it's just going to keep going up. Whenever you hear that, it's just going to keep going up. And there's a line around the block to buy. That's when you should be worried. And we'll see that in crypto coming up, right? So it might be 3 months from now. It might be 12 months from now. It might be 15 months from now. When you see that, start to get worried because it won't be that way. And it will flip
kind of the opposite. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it will flip around the opposite way.
Doc was telling before that he was asked to write these ninja loans, which means no income, no job application. And people were writing those. Again, let me slow that down. No income and no job, those applications, and they were getting approved. So anyone that worked in that industry could see that writing on the wall and be like, this cannot last forever. And in that same breath, a lot of people or experienced investors or people that have been around tech and finance for a while can be like, okay, this company or these companies are doing the right things. They're setting up these blocks and they have a disruptive product. They have an innovative team. They're out innovating people, and their blockchain or their company or their whatever that they do are doing things that no one else can. And they're worth like X amount of millions of dollars. Like, no, this should be hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. And again, we can see that writing on the wall. Not everyone can. A lot of people just, again, they look at the chart and they look at the price going down and they just get emotional about that. But that will come to an end at some point. And obviously, again, not financial advice. This is just the way I see things, and I could be wrong. But
we could potentially see something exactly like that happen in the crypto space in the next year to year and a half. Like what Michael Saylor's been doing, everyone right now is calling him a complete genius. He took some risks and he took some leverage risks that so far have worked out for him. And because of the timing in the market, probably going to continue to work out really good for him. So then other businesses are starting to copy that model. And what they do is they take an existing business with some kind of revenue stream. They then borrow against that revenue stream, and then they buy Bitcoin. And then as Bitcoin goes up, they borrow against that Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin. And it's a risky strategy. During the bear market, there were a couple points that Michael Saylor was almost in real trouble. But now that a bunch of people are going to copy this, because everyone's like, Michael Saylor is the smartest ever. And it's like, he took some risks and they've worked out pretty well for him. He did have low leverage positions and he still almost got wiped out. But boy, you have 1,000 companies copy that. and Bitcoin is going to go to prices people can't even fathom. But then guess what's going to happen after that? You'll hear everyone saying, oh, it's just going to keep going up. But it is a total house of cards, exactly like what happened with the real estate market in the US and Canada in like 2002 through 2006. What just happened with the real estate market in China, and they're going through the pain of that real estate market, that you have almost entire cities built with almost nobody living in those cities because real estate just keeps going up. Well, there were some reasons why people kept buying in China, and more houses, and the price kept going up. So everyone considered a safe investment. If you do see 1,000 companies copying what Michael Saylor did, Bitcoin will overboom. So then everyone will think it's super secure because Bitcoin does nothing but go up. Remember recency bias. It's been going up since this point, and so it's just going to keep going up for forever. And then they'll find out it doesn't. And then people will run around and blame crypto and Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, you took some risky positions. This is why I buy altcoins because they're riskier. They can go up more, they can go down. But buying on leverage at all in crypto, really, it's already too volatile. It is not a good way to go. Like, you can make good enough gains without leverage. Here's the problem if you use leverage. You might be right that it's going to go up from here, and it goes down just for 2 days, and it goes down massively for 2 days. So was your overall thesis right? Yep. But it doesn't matter because you got liquidated out of your position, and now you have $0. Doesn't matter that you were overall right. You were just wrong for 2 days. You got liquidated.
Yeah, I was thinking, Raymond, you're saying like what Michael Saylor did. That's what caused the Great Depression. I don't know if you guys realize that, but people started just being like, the stock market just keeps going up, and people started to take out loans to buy stock. Like that happened throughout the 1920s. And then basically as a house of cards, then someone was like these stocks are like way overvalued. Then they started to sell. And then, there's other macroeconomic variables that also came into play there. But that was a massive one there, right? And that was before FDIC insurance or bank insurance, right? And so when banks failed, you were just like SOL. And that's actually what created the FDIC, which is a fascinating story there. But there is no FDIC in crypto, right? So this Bitcoin drops, like you're just hosed, and a lot of these companies would be hosed that way too. So, definitely if any sort of financial institution or hedge fund was leveraging to do that, that's so risky. And honestly, you got to think about that with micro strategies and what they're doing there, right? They're selling corporate debt to then buy more Bitcoin, and it works until it doesn't. And then if it doesn't, right, how are they going to be paying that corporate debt? Stock price could take a massive dump at some point in the future. Fascinating topic there. But that's these cycles. And I just have to do a clarifying thing too. When people, again, this is my wheelhouse, right? Mortgage-backed securities and what was happening there. Some interesting things that you guys might not have known that helped cause this Great Recession related to these mortgage-backed securities. What would happen is these institutions, they would originate a lot of these mortgages, 1 to 4 family mortgages, right? And they would securitize them, roll that up so people could get cash flows. But they had to go to rating agencies, right? And basically the rating agencies would look at the underwriting criteria. They do some transaction testing and like a small percentage of the overall security, right? And they'd say, yep, like this meant the underwriting standards. It looks like there weren't any exceptions or anything. So we're going to rate it AAA. And one of the things that these institutions argued as to why there wasn't a lot of risk is because, look, like if you make mortgages in just like a small city or a town, and then some issue impacts that town, maybe there's a hurricane or a flood, right? Then like no one in that town is going to be able to repay the mortgage. And so they would say, hey, we're mitigating some of this risk by spreading out the mortgages. So all of these mortgages that were rolling up into the security are all over the country. So it's mitigated. But then what they started to do is they started to take riskier and riskier borrowers and make that same argument that, number one, housing prices were going up, and that even though these were riskier borrowers, it would there was no national recession that was going to hit all of them to where like a large percentage of them would default. Like that was the argument, right? And then and I can't remember his name, but that one guy from The Big Short he started looking. He's like, it would only have to be like a 3.5% default rate on these mortgage-backed securities for it to like unravel completely, right? And that's when he went to Goldman Sachs and basically said, hey, I'm thinking of this new financial product called collateralized mortgage obligation, or a CMO, right? And basically what it is insurance, or a CDO, collateralized debt obligation. It's insurance against the failure of some of these mortgage-backed securities. And Goldman Sachs is like, this is a no-brainer. These are AAA rated securities. We'll take your money. Ha, 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 ha. And then as it started, and where I'm going with this is that guy did the research, right? It was there for everyone to see. But he did the research and said, well, wait a second. When I crunch these numbers, when I look at this, there only has to be a very small default rate for this to start to unravel. Now, props to him for going and creating that financial instrument, right? To those collateralized mortgage obligations or collateralized debt. I can't remember, it's CDO or anyways. But yeah, this insurance against the default of these mortgage-backed securities. And then once that started to happen, that's when he made billions on that bet, right? And so I've seen that thesis play out not only there, but then with crypto rain and like some of these crypto projects where you're doing the fundamental analysis and you're saying, I feel like I am seeing this. I feel like this token potentially is undervalued for what this project is doing. And if it hits this narrative, there's a good chance, it's not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that this could do really, really well. I like taking those bets, and it's still a bet because like there's some that have gone to zero, right? I think that's important to bring that up. But man, I love this stuff. And then applying what's happened historically, right? And then seeing what's going on in this space and making some of those tie-ins and being like, well, wait a second, those comparisons and saying, this is pretty similar. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah. Getting to a few more questions. Do you think we'll ever see DC Comics? Yeah, if we do get DC Comics from Candy, do you think they'll just transfer the comics from Candy to VeVe? Interesting question. Don't know how that'll play out. Randy, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how they do that. Never underestimate David. He always has things that he's trying to negotiate on and things that he's working on. And that's one of those things that I would think that he would just never relent on. And the reason why I say that is not just because he's, let's say, like greedy about anything or that he's colluding in anything that he shouldn't be colluding in, but I think that at some point you're going to have those parent companies be like, okay, what's going to make us the most money? Like, where are we going to go? That's going to, and David is also indefatigable about that. Like, he's going to remind them constantly about all of the things that they could be doing on the VeVe app with the VeVe company, with all the other stuff. And again, I know that, why do you have Nike and Adidas always like kind of in the same shopping centers? Why do you have Walgreens and CVS right across the street from each other? Because if somebody's going to go shopping for shoes, they're going to go to a place that has all those things. And are you going to go to a major shopping center, or are you going to go to this kind of really rundown, crappy outlet mall with like 1 or 2 stores? They're going to go to a major shopping center because even if they don't want shoes and they go for something else, I might as well get some shoes to go with this. And you want to be around that competition. There was something that happened it was like a couple months ago, where Candy had disabled payout and nobody knew for days because nobody was on there and nobody was trying to withdraw or do anything. And if that happened, people would know on VeVe in minutes. They would be like, oh, guess what happened? Guess what they, and maybe people just didn't check their email or whatever it was. But yeah, the amount of volume and the amount of people that are on VeVe as opposed to any other NFT platform out there is going to be more valuable to these companies in the long term. And again, we hope for the success, and we want to grow we want to grow the platform, we want to grow the hobby of digital collecting. So you definitely don't want to go in and wish for anyone's misfortune, but at the same time, you have to be realistic and say like, okay, what are these other platforms likely to do? Can they continue to run at this rate with it being in the negative every month? And how long can they last? And you know, you've seen it with Recur, you've seen it with I don't know who did the Game of Thrones NFTs, but and these are companies that have major licenses and they're going down. So I would think that we would get them at some point. But you know, it's just my 2 cents.
Makes sense. Quick shout out to Toby Salisbury for joining us at 2 a.m. in the UK. Thoughts on Ben Reilly Beyond Spider-Man? Only 616 editions. Also excited about Viz Media partnership and manga coming to the app.
Ben Reilly is an amazing character. He's in every way Peter Parker, but he's not Peter Parker. He is a clone of Peter Parker, and he took his name from, his uncle's first name, Ben, and Aunt May's maiden name of Riley, and he became Ben Reilly. And he is, again, in every way Peter Parker, but his personality is different. Anyone that has kids know you treat them the same, you love them the same, you discipline them the same, but they just come out of the box different. And he's a little bit meaner, whereas Spider-Man holds back, so he doesn't seriously injure a lot of his enemies. Ben Reilly just straight up punches people and breaks their jaw clean off. And it's just, so when that happens, like, oh, no, this ain't Spider-Man. So I really, really like him. I thoroughly enjoy him. I think he's a very underrated, underutilized character. I'll get him again. I really like him.
Any of you three going to New York Comic-Con?
Yeah, I think we all are, right? I think we're all going there. And the cool thing is, like we showed earlier, that both Rain and I got press passes. And if you get press passes to New York, to San Diego Comic-Con, you also get them to New York Comic-Con. And so we'll be going there and covering more projects. And one of the things, like, I popped into the Backhouse Discord, right? And I'm like, hey, like, I'm really excited to see what Candy Digital is doing and cover anything going on with that project with Todd McFarlane. Like, I'm definitely planning on covering a lot of the projects that I follow here and any of them that are going to any of these Comic-Cons. So, like, and Rain's going to be there too. Like, we're all going to be there. I'd love for you guys to put in the chat down below, right? Like, some of the other projects that maybe we're not thinking of that you'd like to see us go and cover, and whether we do interviews there or we go and listen to something and then we kind of provide our feedback or our thoughts on what we heard. Definitely like to do that. I'd like to I want to address God's entry, some of God's entries comments there, where he says,
but I'm way up higher.
Yeah, you're way up high. This is like right near the bottom, but he says, like, mints mean nothing when founders do OTC deals with lower mints after market is made. He says OMI means nothing without utility or exchanges. Said this over 2 years ago. Well, so I just want to address a couple of these because I respect God's entry, right? But I did put there that I fundamentally agree with some of the things. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, exchanges are necessary for any token, but like OMI does have some exchanges. Now, they're not all of the biggest ones by any means, but they still have some pretty big exchanges. Would I like to see more? Yeah, but let's look at Ape Token. Ape Token has a ton of exchanges. I think they're on all of the exchanges. Tokens doing nothing, right? So, like, just because you have exchanges doesn't mean that the token price is going to go up. And that's where we talk about, in our opinion, that a narrative means something. And like the Ape Token is in the NFT narrative. And that's one of the reasons, even with all those exchanges, nothing's happening there. And there is some utility with the Ape Token, like with one of their games or something, not significant there. But then he just says, this is where I fundamentally agree. He says, OMI, unfortunately, will fade out every cycle. And I just don't see the support behind that. And like, we've provided our support as to why we think OMI can do well and what's going on. It's tied to a company that's making money in this bear market, right? And that they are continuing to build out utility for that. So that utility is coming. So to say that OMI, unfortunately, will fade out every cycle, like, fundamentally disagree. But the cool thing about this is like, I feel like individuals, we can discuss and say, hey, I disagree with that, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is, right? And the great thing is like, in a year, we'll be able to look back and be like, hey, you were right or you're wrong, right? And I was right. And that's how it is. So, like, I love conversations like that. And I don't mind addressing things where we disagree. But yeah, then he said, like, apologies for the truth. And I was like, see, that's where I got to point out and say, you are making opinions. Your statements are opinions. They're not truth. The truth, like, because the future hasn't played out yet. Maybe you can say that in 2 years, right? If things don't go right. But like right now, to say that's the truth, I just completely disagree.
It's opinion on what the future looks like. And OMI will fade out every cycle. I don't even know quite what that statement means. what, like it'll fade out, meaning it runs and then it pulls back. Well, that's actually every crypto.
Oh yeah, okay, I would agree with that. Maybe I misunderstood.
Right,
That's what
like,
he's saying, and I would agree with
everything
that.
will fade out every cycle, because that's just the pendulum swings too far one way and then it swings too far the other way. If that's what he's saying, then I agree with that. I want to get to this comment because I thought it was fun. Will Cavell Anderson be invited to the yacht party after the altcoin season? He'll be invited, and maybe someone shows up with a mask that then carries around a Cavell Anderson sign. That would be epic.
Well, so you're going to invite him? That's very nice of you. Because if you look at my comment right below there, that's my thought there.
I didn't see that. There's so many comments. It's so hard to keep up with it.
It's right underneath that comment.
Yeah, I would not invite him either. As I've gotten older, my circle has gotten smaller, and Cavell is not in that circle.
Well,
I just said that's a hard no. That's a hard no. JL. No.
Yeah.
Like look, like I'm not going to say much, but I've alluded to this multiple times, but there was Sergio had done a poll as to whether or not Cavell was, like was a benefit to the VeVe fam or something along those lines, right?
It was, does Cavell have your best interest at heart?
That's what it was, right? And the poll came back, and like the majority was like no, right? And I commented on there, and I was like, yeah, he absolutely does not, and I have the proof, behind that. And then I was like, hashtag blockchain doesn't lie. So, look, I don't like. Cavell can be entertaining, and I watch some of his videos, and every once in a while there's a little nugget there that I was like, that was pretty good, And early on it was fun, like bullish. And I'm not saying that just because he's not bullish on it now that like things have changed, but just overall, even in the early days, I mean, he said Quid was better than VeVe. Like there's so many instances that I could give you that I just am like, I just don't feel like it would be a net benefit to the fam to have him at a yacht party. So that's just me.
Well, he holds a unique place in history. And what's funny is, like, I subscribed to him for about a week, and I watched some of his videos, and I was like, man, 30-minute video. And I feel like I got 20 seconds worth of like alpha in there or knowledge, and the rest was filler. And I was like, I just don't have time for this. So I unsubscribed, and the YouTube algorithm like loved him for like the next 9 months, like right at the top of my feed, even though I'm unsubscribed to him. It's like Cavell's new video. I was like, man, whatever he is doing to get at the top of the feed, well, YouTube just loves him because, gosh, I have to scroll past his stuff because I just wasn't getting enough information for a 20 or 30-minute video for what I wanted. So I was like, I just don't have time to watch his videos. And then he went weird. Yeah.
And again, like, I mean, sometimes like the entertainment value was worth my time. I've like his comments on some of the things, but there was a lot, and I was just like, I'm not gonna like, and I guess my thing that I've been holding back on is I've kind of been waiting. I get very defensive when I feel like people attack the VeVe fam because I've just gotten to know so many of them, and I know that a lot of them don't have experience in crypto, and they look to people who maybe have larger followings on Twitter or on YouTube, right? And then they kind of take that person's voice very seriously. And I'm just like, if I continue to hear that, like, the VeVe team or like VeVe fam or idiots or anything like that, like, then I'll probably make a video and really demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Because I'm serious that I've got some information. It's not very flattering on like what Cavell has done to people in the community that follow him. It's so I'll just leave it at that. But if he continues to
about
that and things like that, then like I will make a video specifically pointing out and just providing facts, and you guys can make the decision for yourself if you think that he has your best interests at heart. So
awesome. Well, any other topics you guys want to cover? We've been going for almost 2 hours here. Amazing comments. I love the engagement from the audience. Trying to keep up with it. I haven't been able to. Just is what it is. Somebody asked me about the glasses, and they're like, why are you wearing sunglasses indoors? And like, you're assuming that I'm indoors. So there we go with assumptions. So actually, so you don't see the massive drug abuse. It's either option number 1 is massive drug abuse in my eyes. Option number 2 is effing alluvium, and paying you to play video games for the last month. And it may be that I've been playing 12 hours of video games some days. Why? Well, because I can, and they're paying me to play. So that's been cool. But then my eyes started to hurt. And then these massive lights I have, holy frick. So the sunglasses are saving my eyes. That's option number 2. Option number 3 is I just like the look. It's probably option number 3.
I don't like strong lights either, but I haven't had. I keep losing them. I keep breaking them. Now, granted, I get them from the dollar store, so they don't mean that much to me. But the dollar sunglasses, they keep breaking. I keep sitting on them. Turn to an old man, forget where they are. So I just haven't had them. I love them though.
I do like Pitbull. My boy Crypto Ranch trying to look like my boy Pitbull. Pitbull, his music is freaking awesome. That guy, he's a G. Like, I think he was born short. I don't know that he's particularly good looking, yet he kills it. Like, he has made everything in his life happen through hard work. That guy is freaking awesome. Like, immigrant, I think, to the U.S., made himself super rich, super successful, overcome every obstacle in his way. Like, he is actually a case study on the American dream. So Pitbull is actually a legend. So I'll take that as a compliment.
Speaking of that, immigrant here, I am first generation Peruvian. This country has accepted me. It's adopted me. It's allowed me to serve in the world's greatest Air Force. We're a couple hours away from 4th of July. Thank you to all Americans out there and all the, just let's have fun. I might do a late night party stream tomorrow. Who knows? Keep y'all posted.
All right, everyone.
I love you guys. Goodbye.
Yeah. Hey, Chris.